Hi everyone, Goober from FactionFiles.com here, and today in this video we're going to talk about geometry within the Red Faction engine and the Red editor itself, the Red Faction level editor. We're also going to talk about layering using the start of time and end of time features. So before I actually get going in the editor, I just wanted to take a quick second and go over geometry in the game, because this will really help with your understanding of what's going on here. So essentially, Red Faction uses what's referred to as subtractive-based geometry. And essentially what that means is that the entire game world, everything you see here, is one big solid mass. We carve out of that mass using brushes, well, predominantly airbrushes, and that gives us our level. So each level in the engine is essentially a cave in the middle of this infinitely solid or infinitely large solid world. This is very similar to the way that older Unreal Engine iterations used to do this. I think everything up to and including Unreal Engine 3, if I'm not mistaken. It's the opposite of how Quake-based engines and the new Unreal Engine 4 do it. In Quake-based engines, like well, if you're using Radiant for development of maps for Quake or Doom or Wolfenstein, or Hammer for Gold Source or Source games. Likewise, Unreal Engine 4 for Unreal Engine 4 and Unreal Tournament 4. They use additive geometry, which essentially means you're adding to the world. In Red Faction, we're subtracting from the world. So the world is solid, we are subtracting from it. Which is why, just to start here, which is why I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger. I have my brush here set to air. So if I hit create brush here, this is going to carve out of my world. Now, it hasn't yet because I haven't built my level geometry. The hotkey for building is space. You can also press this build button here. It effectively does the exact same thing. And this here is the start of my level. This is my cave. This is the first cave in my map. This is a cube that has been cut out of the level geometry. Now, if I make a solid brush just to show you, and I build, there you go. There is a pillar now. Whereas my room was subtracting from the level geometry, my solid, because it was an airbrush, my solid brush here is adding to the level geometry. So if you look here, this is in the level. Now my cave isn't quite as simple anymore. It's not just a box, it's a box that has this this vertical column in it. Now, this is very similar, I just wanted to mention, to the way that GeoMod works within the engine. So I'm just going to go into the engine here to show you what that looks like. Just put a rocket launcher here so I can use that. If I hit play here, here's my rocket launcher. So as you can see, I'm here in this cave. Here's my pillar. I'm going to take out my rocket launcher. If I fire this at the wall, you can see I have a new cave. That's an airbrush that's being created there. And you can see even that the geometry was being calculated around it. That's what these lines are here in the shadow and the light map on the map. So I can just keep going here. It's just making more airbrushes. So that was a solid column before. Now it's got a hole that I can jump through. And every time you geomod in the engine, effectively what you're doing is building, the same as pressing space within the editor. Now, let's go on to layering for a second. So the start of time and end of time features here are used for layering in the engine. Essentially what they do, start of time and end of time, is they change when the brush that you have selected is considered in the build order. So when you build your map, it goes in the time build order, and it will build things in that order. When you create a new brush, it automatically goes to the end of that, so it's built last. And what this means is that I have my solid column here. If I make an air brush here, and I'm intersecting my solid column with that, and I hit build here, because this airbrush is after this solid brush in the build order, in the time order, it will cut out of it. If I select my column here and hit end of time, it will bump this solid column to the end of the build order, meaning it then takes precedence over the airbrush. I can just do it again. There you go. Now, likewise, if I select my column here and hit start of time, it disappears at build time. And the reason for that is my room here is now ahead of my solid brush in the build order. So the engine is building my solid brush, then it is building my airbrush, which is cutting out of my solid brush entirely, actually, because it completely encompasses it. So there you go, I hit end of time, and there you go. Likewise, if you have, say, 2 columns here, set my airbrush to end of time there. If you have, move it away so you can actually see it. If you have 2 columns here side by side, there's an airbrush here cutting out of both of them. If I select this one column and hit it as end of time, the airbrush will still cut out of this other column because the airbrush is still after this column in time order. It's just not after this one. So that's essentially the way that layering works in the engine. Yeah, so all right, I'm going to do another video soon on the rest of the brushwork operators here, mesh smooth, bend, all that kind of stuff, so look out for that soon. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, found it useful. If you did, leave a comment below. Also, check out factionfiles.com. We've got, I believe, the largest archive of Red Faction series files anywhere. We've also got tons of tutorials, help with the editor, additional groups you can download to help you with your mapping and modding. Also, check out our Discord group, our Discord server. If you want to talk to other Red Editor users or fans of the Red Faction series, just hang out with us. If you have any questions, feel free to hit us up on that. Anyway, I'll see you next time. Thanks.